Hi, I'm Ewan.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is
Popcorn and Cumin, a transatlantic dive into film and media.
With a healthy side of unrelated nonsense.
Hello and welcome to Popcorn and Cumin, listener's choice. Whoop, 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 whoop. And you chose to talk about Harry Potter plot holes, which we are very, very excited to talk about.
Yeah, Sarah's a massive Harry Potter nerd, so she's been waiting for... This is our 15th episode, I think, and Sarah's been waiting for 15 episodes for the chance to talk about Harry Potter.
Yes, I'm very excited. I would consider myself highly knowledgeable about Harry Potter, although now it has been, I believe, 4 years since I've read a Harry Potter book. So maybe some of my knowledge is starting to slip just a little bit.
You've read it as recently as 4 years ago?
Yeah. I think it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, because was recently after I graduated university and I was back home staying with my parents, and our local bar that does pub quizzes started doing weekly Harry Potter pub quizzes. I think they would have a book section and then a movie section, and it was one book each week. So it went for 7 weeks, and every week there would be a pub quiz on a specific book. And so I went with my parents to the first one and we won, which was, and these are very hard Harry Potter questions, not just, who is Harry's ginger friend or something. Here are some examples of some of the questions that were asked. How many staircases are there in Hogwarts?
42.
No.
142.
Yes. Wow. I'm pretty sure I've asked you that before, so you came prepared.
You ask me that every day.
Or what is Nearly Headless Nick's full name?
Sir Nicholas Nick Less Head.
No, it's Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington. What is Dumbledore's full name?
Wilfred Alfred Brian Dumbledore.
It's close, but you didn't even say his first name.
Albus Wilfred Brian Wulfric Dumbledore.
Albus. Oh
Percival.
Percival.
Albus.
No.
Brian Dumbledore.
You have said all of the names at some point, so I'll give it to you.
Nice.
And there were other very difficult questions that I don't remember now.
But I mean, I just got 2 out of 3 without even revising. So.
Well, that's because I've probably asked you these before. Anyway, so then I started, after we won the first one, I got really excited and then started rereading the books to try to sort of study for it.
So you could beat a bunch of other children on quizzes about kids' books.
People my age. And we won the next one, but we were given second place, and I overheard the quizmaster saying that they felt bad that my team won again. Mm-hmm. And so they gave it to another team out of pity.
Yeah, the pub quiz we go to now should adopt something like that, because that would help our winning streak more.
Yeah, we got first place once, and now we get second place quite a lot, because there's one team that always beats us. And
then there's a after quiz game, and one team has been selected for that 5 times out of the last 6.
It's a raffle, and if you win the raffle, then you get to play a game for some money. And the last 5 times we've been here, the same team has been selected in the raffle, and I think they've won twice.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's enraging.
The
most recent time, there was quite a lot of hysteria when they got selected again. And then
people were...
Yeah, the atmosphere really soured in the pub. And it became quite clear that everyone was kind of rooting against them to win the game, which was, fair play, I think.
Yeah. I was pretty annoyed. But it was the mom's, 50th birthday.
I mean, so she claims.
Yeah, that's true.
So she claims.
That's true.
She might have just had a tough paper round.
But anyway, okay, I'm going to go off of my Harry Potter pub quiz story to go into my cross-border factoid, which is a factoid that cost us one of the pub quizzes. It cost us the win. Listen, okay. The Harry Potter illustrated books, I'm not sure, hopefully people are somewhat familiar with them. They're very pretty, gorgeously illustrated. And my sister went through a phase of getting these for me every year for my birthday. So I have the first 4 of them. So I was like, oh, when I'm rereading for this pub quiz, I might as well read these illustrated ones because they're kind of like new and unique. But the illustrated ones are the UK version. And in the UK versions, some things are slightly different. So one of the questions in the pub quiz was, what is the password to get into Dumbledore's office in whatever, I forget which book we were doing. I think it's one of the early ones. Maybe the second one, or maybe the first one actually. No, because we won that, so it must be the second one. So I said confidently, lemon drop. But apparently this is different in the US and the UK version because I guess we don't have lemon drops or something. So the answer was like lemon sherbet or something, just slightly different. So then I got it wrong, even though I was right. But that's the UK-US difference, is the password to Dumbledore's office.
Yeah. And you said the like correct answer because you said the
UK
original one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can just imagine how infuriated you would have been.
Oh, I was
how
so
indignant
mad.
that you were right, and then I imagine you were determined to prove that you were right. You probably went home, got the illustrated version, and then showed it to the guy or the quiz master and was like, "Look at this, this, I'm right."
Well, I immediately looked it up on my phone, and then I showed the quiz master, and then she was like, "I can only go by what's written down here."
You just said, "What do your eyes tell you? Look at this book."
Okay, but that's my little difference.
Mm-hmm. And my difference is, quite a well-known one, but I'm going to sort of illuminate the reason behind the difference. So there's first Harry Potter book was originally published in the UK. The book is called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And when they went to publish the book in the US, they decided we can't call it Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. We need to change the name to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And the reason for this is because Americans do not know what a philosopher is. I'm not really sure why.
No.
I mean, it's not that difficult a word.
No.
You think it's a country that speaks English as its first language, philosopher. America was a country that was founded based on, core philosophical principles. There was a sort of idea of what the country was meant to be. And you'd have thought that would have lasted throughout the American educational system, so Americans would know the word philosopher, but they don't,
now
apparently.
See, exactly. You just proved my point.
Sarah, I mean...
This is incorrect.
Define what a philosopher is. Oh, you can. There you go.
No, okay, listen. You define what a philosopher is right now.
A thinker.
Well, exactly. Your idea of a philosopher is not even what is meant by philosopher in the title. This is referring to philosophers back a long, long time ago who were actually like alchemists, and we're dabbling in magic and trying to find out how to turn metal into gold and become immortal. The Philosopher's Stone is not about people thinking. It's about people who are dabbling in magic.
Yeah. It's interesting because, philosophers are associated, I mean, not all of them, but with being, intelligent, and they spend all their time thinking because they've got all these thoughts. But alchemy is complete nonsense, pseudoscience, rubbish.
Well, I do think some ancient Greek philosophers were...
Isaac Newton believed in alchemy.
Yeah, which is why it's called the Philosopher's Stone and all of that. So there is a common misconception that Americans don't know what the term philosopher means, which is why they changed it to be the Sorcerer's Stone, so the whole thing behind this is just Americans are stupid. Listen, this is just wrong.
Americans aren't stupid.
Well, some Americans are stupid, just like some British people are stupid.
No, I don't know about that.
Yes, there's definitely quite a few stupid Americans. But it was changed to Sorcerer's Stone to make it clear that this is a book about wizards. It was a marketing tactic because Harry Potter wasn't huge yet. So when they were marketing this book to children, they wanted to make it clear that this is a book about wizards. And they probably correctly assumed that children would be more likely to read a book called The Sorcerer's Stone than The Philosopher's Stone. And furthermore, some people have said, sort of similarly to what we were saying, that they changed it to Sorcerer's Stone because kids wouldn't know like the sort of myth behind the Philosopher's Stone. They wouldn't understand what the Philosopher's Stone is. Did you know what the Philosopher's Stone was when you were a child? Had you read The Alchemist?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You'd already told me that you didn't. So don't lie. So my point being is that most children, regardless of if they grew up in America or the UK, wouldn't know what the Philosopher's Stone is, haven't read The Alchemist, aren't familiar with alchemy, etc. And Harry Potter isn't even about alchemy. When you're starting a series, you want people to get engaged in the series, and you want the first book should more generally reflect the entire series rather than just being about one object.
But the book was already selling in the UK with the name Philosopher's Stone.
But I don't think it had. I mean, it probably was selling some, but it hadn't yet really kicked off.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe the name change is the reason why Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. None of the other titles were changed, though, interestingly. Maybe in other languages they might have been. I'm not sure, but definitely not from, US to UK they weren't.
It's possible at that point she was working with both the American and UK editors together to come up with the titles. Or she was so big by then that she was like, I'm gonna call it whatever I want. Don't tell me what to do. It is clear that by sort of definitely by the fifth one, the editors had far less power to tell her, you gotta cut this down.
I mean, so the second book's Chamber of Secrets. Do you think the average American knows what a chamber is?
Shut up. No, they probably don't.
No.
What is a chamber?
I don't know. A room of sorts.
So, yes, hopefully now you have a better understanding of why they changed the name from philosopher to sorcerer. But if you are still confused, please feel free to reach out to Popcorn and Cumin, and I will write you an essay about that change.
How many words do you think it would be?
Maybe 2,000?
I mean, ultimately, though, your answer is just a theory, just the same as mine. We don't have definitive proof as to what the reason
I found
is.
it hard to find any kind of statement from Scholastic, who's the American publisher.
Where's your statement, Scholastic?
Yeah. Well, I would think she's been asked this in interviews or something, but I found it hard to find anything like that. But now that we have gone through those differences, it's time to get on to the real meat, the juice, what you have come here for, which is solving Harry Potter plot holes. And we do apologize for postponing this episode from last week. Unfortunately, Ewan and I both fell ill. Well, I fell ill, and then I passed that on to Ewan.
Who has since bounced back from his illness, although Sarah is still kind of in the recovery phase. Yeah,
so I mean, I think both of us are still a little bit, maybe me a little bit more so. So if you hear our voices sounding a bit hoarse or anything, that is why. So, but we just couldn't wait another week to record because we were too excited. So you will be receiving this episode despite our illness.
Mm-hmm. This is what it means to us.
Yeah.
We're willing to put our lives on the line to record this podcast.
Exactly. So you should be very grateful. All right, we are starting off with our first plot hole. So we have come up with a number of plot holes, something like 13 or 14 or something. Plus, our lovely listeners have sent in some additional plot holes that we shall be discussing. Then we will be trying to solve them, trying to give you some kind of explanation of why they are there, and we'll figure them out together. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
He's ready. The first one. So in the book, the first book, the Philosopher's / Sorcerer's Stone, Hagrid finds Harry on the island where the Dursleys take him to try to hide from all the letters that are coming for him. And Harry asks Hagrid how he got there, and Hagrid says that he flew. But how did he fly? Because number one, there is no broom on the island. Number two, he says later in the series that a broom won't even hold his weight. And sometimes he flies on Sirius's flying motorcycle, but there's no motorcycle on the island, and they don't use a motorcycle or a broom or anything to get off the island. They actually use the boat that the Dursleys got there on, that Hagrid then bewitches with magic to take them back to the main land. So this leaves us with 2 questions. 1, how did Hagrid fly there if he can't fly on a broom? Number 2, how did the Dursleys get off the island? Any ideas, Ewan?
Yeah, I got a couple theories on this. So Hagrid has to fly somehow, right? And Hagrid is a big fan of magical creatures, right?
Mm.
So there's a couple, there's magical creatures in the lore. So there's Thestrals, which they pull the carriages going into Hogwarts, and they can only be seen if you die, if you've seen death.
You die.
Yeah,
you can only
die,
see them
can
if
see
you're
them.
dead.
You can only see them if you've seen death. We'll later come on to the fact that Harry cannot see them until a certain point in the story, but at this point he would not be able to see one. So Hagrid could have used a Thestral to fly onto the island and left it there to die.
Well, I mean, the Thestral could just fly away.
I mean, it could. It might not, though. Who knows what happens? Maybe Hagrid came back to it. There's a classic problem where it's about a farmer trying to take some grain, a chicken, and a fox from his farm across to an island, but he can only take one thing at a time, and then the problem becomes because if you leave the chicken with the grain will eat the grain, or you leave the fox with the chicken. So kind of a riff on that. Hagrid goes to get Harry and then leaves the Thestral behind just so he can steal the boat. But then he has to get the Thestral back, but he can only do that by taking another Thestral or something else there. I suppose he could return the boat, but he doesn't, as far as we're aware. So,
but the Thestral probably has its own agency, It doesn't need Hagrid.
A lot of magical creatures in the wizarding world don't have their own agency.
I suppose.
They're either servants/slaves of wizards or just nothing. They're
Maybe
just
he has a case like Newt. Maybe he puts the Thestral in his case.
That seems like more complex
and then
magic.
puts it in his coat.
The other thing I was thinking is that Hagrid is an animagus, and he turns into a bat or some other creature, maybe a hippogriff, because he's a half man, half giant, right? And I think so far in the Harry Potter lore, you can only be an animagus into a non-magical creature, or at least that's all we see. But because Hagrid is in himself half magical creature, maybe he can animagus into a magical creature. So maybe Hagrid is a hippogriff.
Maybe Hagrid is Buckbeak.
Yeah.
Are they ever in the same room together?
And then...
Yes, all the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. That would be some sort of time turner situation where Hagrid goes back in time to his first magical beasts lesson. What's it called? Magical beasts? Magical zoology.
Creatures.
Yeah, whatever.
Care of magical creatures.
Yeah, and then in the past, he's both Buckbeak and Hagrid at the lesson, and then he attacks Malfoy.
All this was a plot to attack Malfoy, because he's a little bitch.
Yeah, it's a good plan, really.
Yeah.
The problem we now face is how do the Dursleys get off the island?
Yeah.
So they could call, good old RNLI, which are the aquatic rescue team in the UK.
Yeah.
Royal Navy Life Insurers.
Yeah. Do they have a phone and reception?
This was pre-mobile days.
Yeah.
Well, pre-widespread mobile days.
So there might have been a landline. But I feel like because they're trying so hard not to be reached, that they would avoid having any kind of... So maybe there's a landline there, in which case they could call whatever you've just said.
Maybe... Now, this is my more compelling theory.
Okay.
Is that the Dursleys are left on the island and perish. And then...
Yeah, this is definitely more compelling.
Dumbledore realizes that he's made a huge mess of the situation by sending Hagrid to go get Harry and steal his boat, or steal their boat and leave him to die. And he then gets some other people that he's friends with, I don't know, probably some random magical folk, to then take Polyjuice Potion to pretend to be the Dursleys for the rest of the series.
Oh,
and he says, now make sure you still apply a fair amount of parental abuse to Harry, because we can't have him suspecting anything. Although they do relent a little bit from that point on because they're scared of his magic.
That's true. So then how would Harry still have his mother's protection if Petunia's dead? How would Voldemort not just go get him in the 7th one.
Well, although, I mean, maybe he just doesn't know. Like, he sees them
you think
coming.
he doesn't try?
Yeah, he sees, like, fake Vernon and fake Petunia coming out to do groceries and go to Grunnings or whatever. That's his company.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess the mother's protection thing's still going. Or maybe it's just located to Privet Drive. Maybe it's just as long as at Privet Drive. Maybe there's a charm in his... No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe there's a charm in the cupboard under the stairs that is protecting him.
Okay. Wow, what good theories.
Yeah.
My theories also involve Thestrals. I thought maybe Hagrid sort of Wingardium Leviosa himself, which I don't really think people can do.
No,
but that's a thing. Or he actually just disapparated, but he didn't want to have to explain that to Harry, so he was like, oh, I just flew.
I've come up with another theory. So in Marvel, the Incredible Hulk can jump very big distances because he has such big leg muscles. So maybe Hagrid can do the same thing. Then
wouldn't he say, I jumped?
No, he kind of flies.
Yeah.
He's falling with style.
Okay. Falling with style. All right, that's good. And then how they got rescued. Or maybe they swam. Although
Doubt it.
Vernon and Dudley are very out of shape, so I don't think they would survive that.
Yeah, Petunia's stick thin. She's not going to handle a big wave. She's going to be carried off to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
It'd be very cold. But maybe they did. Or maybe, they got rescued, but I was thinking they didn't have a phone. So I was thinking they were just stood outside. Maybe,
shooting.
Yeah, Vernon had a gun, so maybe he just shot his gun until someone heard and then came and saw them. Or maybe Dumbledore went and got him.
Yeah, I mean, for all of these theories, you're going to have to write in and let us know which one you find more compelling. Because ultimately they are plot holes, so there is no correct answer.
No, we're proving that they're not plot holes.
Oh, right, that's true, yeah.
Although some of them definitely are. Okay, what's the next one?
So the next one is in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When Hagrid takes Harry from the little island, they go to Diagon Alley. And they go to Gringotts Bank, and Hagrid is like, here, Harry, you're bloody loaded. Look at all this money you have. You're the richest wizard there ever was. And at the time, we're thinking, okay, I guess both Harry's parents are dead. They left him money. But what we now realise is that James and Lily were approximately 21 when they both died. They both perished, despite their depictions in the movies where they look as if they're like 40. Yeah. Everyone is aged up in the movies, which is a bit of in itself kind of a plot hole.
I believe the explanation is that they really liked Alan Rickman as Snape. And because Alan Rickman is older than, because he was in school with James and Lily, then they had to age everybody up to sort of match Alan Rickman. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
But I don't think they, like, in terms of dates and stuff, they kind of just like omit that information from the movies. So
which is kind of, well, I mean, obviously it's sad no matter what, but the fact that they're only 21. Yeah, it's quite sad, and they already have a kid. Like, well, damn. By
the sound of things, they were living a high-balling life because they'd amassed a massive fortune, which is enough for Harry to basically do whatever he wants with for the rest of his life. At the age of 21, we're not even really sure what they did for a living. So
they were oars.
Well, Ewan is not really sure what they did for a living.
Or dark wizard catchers.
So, well, I guess what we have to say is that unlike civil servants in the real world, wizard civil servants like aurors are paid a lot of money. Taxation in the wizarding world must be very high.
Well, I do have an explanation for this, and I think that in our naivete, we did not think about how most rich people become rich, which is the fact that they just come from wealthy families. Well, another explanation, if we're thinking that they earn this money on their own.
Well, so James must come from a wealthy family, right? Because Lily doesn't.
Yes.
Okay.
If we are thinking that the money came from themselves, they earned it in a way. Because they were in the middle of a wizarding war, they could have taken out some kind of magical life insurance on themselves. And then Harry got the result of it. But that is not what happened. I mean, it might have. But really, James's family... He comes from an old wizarding family, and they have passed down wealth throughout the years. So let me give you a little bit of background. So Linfred, I believe his name is Linfred Potter, which is where the surname Potter comes from. He was called this by his Muggle neighbors, and then the last name, I guess, kind of stuck because it was way back in the day when people's last names were based on their like professions. So he was an experimenter specifically for like cures for illnesses and stuff like that. And so with his experiments, he laid the foundation for Skelligro and Pepper Up potions. So Skelligro regrows people's bones, and Pepper Up potion, I believe, cures minor illnesses such as colds, which we could really use right about now.
Like paracetamol.
Yeah, but magic. And so with the funds he received from selling some of these magical remedies that he came up with, he amassed a small fortune, which then was passed down throughout the years. And then Fleamont Potter was James's dad, and he quadrupled the family fortune because he invented Sleek Easy Hair Potion, which tames even the frizziest of hairs and is actually, I believe, what Hermione uses in the Goblet of Fire to tame her hair when she has her glow up before the Yule Ball. So that then quadrupled the fortune, and then when they died, then James and Harry, I think they died before Harry was born from like dragon pox, and then they passed down that huge fortune to James, who then passed it down to Harry when he died. So that one actually does have an explanation. This whole theory is
just leaving me with more questions than anything. Where does this come from? I didn't remember reading this.
This is the lore. I think at some point...
Is this from Twitter? Is this
It's from
the infamous
Pottermore.
Twitter? Okay.
But it is mentioned in the books. I think the Fleamont Potter inventing the Sleek Easy Hair Potion, I think that is mentioned in the books.
You'd have thought Harry would have maybe like looked into this stuff a little bit, considering it's from his POV.
Yeah, and you'd be interested in
your family history.
Yeah.
Especially if they were loaded wizards.
Yeah, well, maybe he does, but maybe that there just wasn't enough time.
Right, well, I've got a couple things here.
Okay.
If his mum and dad are both Aurors, and he comes from this long line of potions masters, why is he so rubbish at all magic apart from the Expelliarmus charm and the Expecto Patronum?
No, I think he's a talented at Defense Against the Dark Arts. And I think
okay at everything else.
I think he is good at potions, but because Snape is such an asshole bully to him, he never reaches his full potential because he's just being tormented by Snape. But then once Slughorn comes around, I mean, yes, he has that special, the Half-Blood Prince's potion book that has better instructions, but really potions is just cooking. It's following instruction.
Another thing from that, why if Snape has already amended all of the potion books with these better instructions, why is he still teaching the old ones that aren't as good?
Okay, because Snape does in their lessons, he usually writes the instructions on the board rather than having them look in their books for the instructions. So maybe that's why. Maybe he has amended.
But if we're to follow that logic, then Harry's basically been using the Half-Blood Prince book the whole time he's been doing potions, but he's been hopeless until he's had that book.
Because Snape is a dick.
Also, I'm not really sure how anyone can be really bad at potions because it's just following some instructions.
That's what I just said.
Okay.
Well, it's the same way people can still be bad at cooking because potions is basically cooking. If you have a recipe in front of you and you follow it, you know?
Yeah, but not to the same extent.
Because it's all like time sensitive. You have to like stir and Neville's really bad at it, I think, just because he's like gets frazzled.
But he's not good at anything apart from herbology.
He gets better.
Yeah, that's true. He's just low in confidence, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I had some other things to poke into this.
Okay. The inheritance. So essentially, they're old money. They're not new money.
How do they enforce like patents in the wizarding world? Is it because like he comes up with an experiment and then he's like, here you go? It's not clear to me like how he would make that much money. Well, any of them.
The old one, I think he was more selling what he made and made his fortune that way because his remedies were so good.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe once these other potions were developed, if he was credited with it, then, I mean, I don't know how it is with like medical discuss, you know?
Yeah, well, that could become a real world political discussion, so maybe we shouldn't go
I would
that
imagine
way.
that it follows a similar structure.
It's harder to enforce patents in the wizarding world, I imagine. But they don't really have a very good judicial system, or a very like stringent one.
That's true. We're going all over the place here now. But sort of going off of that, another plot hole some people mention is that why don't they use veritaserum in court cases? And I think that it comes down to an ethical thing. And people say it for a lot. They're also like, why didn't James and Lily use veritaserum to ask their friends if they're in league with Voldemort? Mm-hmm. Which it came down to, like, they were their friends. They trusted them. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't, like, force your friends to take lie detector tests.
Mm-hmm. It's not like the wizards in Harry Potter are very big on ethics, like, at any point, are they? So Harry's always dealing with unethical situations at the hands of Dumbledore.
Well, yes, that is true. But that's not, like, the government. But the government is certainly unethical.
They send a mental case to go work at Hogwarts. The government do, in Umbridge. I'm sure she must have some sort of disciplinary record at the Ministry of Magic, and they were like, oh no, she'll be fine teaching kids.
But that's also when, I mean, Fudge is just like totally in denial and is corrupt. And
is he corrupt? I don't know, like, I feel like that's another thing. Like, Fudge is so incompetent. It's kind of like unbelievable how he'd be Minister of Magic. Is he like a populist?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you look at...
How does someone become Minister of Magic?
Well, I think that maybe it's also supposed to be reflecting that politicians in the Muggle world don't always seem like the best options. Mm-hmm. And
are there any other politicians in Harry Potter, apart from the Minister of Magic?
Yeah, well... There's people who work at the ministry. There's people who are on
they're all civil servants.
The Wisingamat.
Oh yeah.
Which is the
was Dumbledore on
sort
that?
Of judicial. What do you call it?
Legislature.
It's kind of like their Supreme Court.
Oh, well, that's a different branch. So those would be the judges. That would be the judiciary.
They're the judges. Yeah,
but then you need a legislature who come up with laws. So those would be like the politicians. It's not very well thought out.
It might be more of a sort of dictatorship.
That's true. But then you'd think that Fudge would be a bit more, you know, authoritarian in his ways instead of just the kind of head in the sand idiot. But
yeah. Well,
my theory on the money is that James is a finance bro and has invested all his money in the equivalent of cryptocurrency. It's come off big. Or he's just a big gambler. So he just bet all his money on black one day and it came off. Or he's a bank robber. Because he's a bit of a kind of... Him and Sirius are kind of thugs, so maybe they're kind of got like a Bonnie and Clyde situation going on.
Bonnie and Clyde? So then they're also in love?
No. Well, maybe.
A lot of people think Sirius and Lupin might...
Be in love?
Yeah. Maybe that's more of a shipping situation, but it's also fan theory.
There's nothing to stop James, you know, stealing from Muggle banks... Because you could do that easily as a wizard and then go into like getting a good exchange rate on your pounds to galleons and then you've got big money.
Yeah, there might be rules about only like Muggles or Muggle-borns can exchange money or something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, any wizard could do that.
I know.
That's kind of why when Muggles and wizards lived together, it wasn't necessarily in harmony because the power balance was too significant, you know? Okay, we gotta move on to the next plot hole. We're generally trying to go in order with the books, but this one is a bit of an outlier. So we're going to Deathly Hallows. So in Deathly Hallows, Harry ends up the owner of the Elder Wand after he disarms Malfoy at Malfoy Manor after Malfoy disarmed Dumbledore before Dumbledore was killed by Snape. Hopefully you followed that. Hopefully you're pretty familiar with these books because we're getting into some real in-depth stuff. So this is sort of insinuating that the wand's allegiance changes if someone is disarmed by another wizard. But the characters throughout the series get disarmed or disarm people all the time. So with that logic, then everyone's wands would be constantly changing allegiance. So why is that not the case for the whole series until we get to the 7th book when the Elder Wand changes allegiance that way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the most obvious explanation would be the Elder Wand, because it's got this kind of like mythical quality to it, has like an additional set of rules that apply to it, where there's a focus on the disarming and it respecting the power of the person who is the owner at the time, and once someone is proved to be effectively undeserving of wielding it, it goes to the person who it deems is deserving of wielding it. Maybe other wands are more loyal in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's right, because the Elder Wand was created so that the most powerful wizard is its owner, so its allegiance is probably more easily changed than with a wand that was just created, to be a wand for a wizard, because this one was created by death.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Also, if all of the wands change allegiance when you do Expelliarmus on them, Harry would be like the General Grievous of wands, because that's the only spell he uses. So he just end up with like 100 wands. Like, chances are every single Death Eater that he fights, maybe that's how he survives all the time, because he's Expelliarmus to everyone he's fighting already. Yeah. So their wands don't work as well, and then he can beat them. I mean, it's the ultimate strategy.
But at the same time, like, when they're practicing disarming charms, like, even Neville disarms Harry at one point. So then is Neville the owner of Harry's wand? Because then Harry's wand wouldn't work well for him. But that's not the case, because Harry's wand continues to work very well for him.
Well, maybe like in that situation, Harry's wand respects that like Harry is like teaching Neville how to be better at magic, but Harry's still like the superior wizard. So there's like a more like intrinsic loyalty, or maybe there's like an idea that like dark magic, if the wand is like steeped in dark magic or something, it loses that like loyalty. It just wants to, in a sort of parasitical way, like attach itself to power. But true. I will say that I do think it's a bit of a plot hole, in the sense that Harry very confidently by the end of the last book comes up with this theory that Voldemort's wand isn't working for him, because he in fact is not the master of the Elder Wand, and at some point Draco was, and then Harry is, or now is. But because those rules aren't really that well established in the book, I'm like, how does Harry come up, like, how does he know that? Because he's not a critical thinker. He like rushes into everything like full steam ahead without thinking, to a fault. So like, when's he had the time to come up with this grand theory that actually turns out to be true?
Yeah. Maybe him and Hermione talked about it, but they don't show us that conversation.
Yeah.
No, I think it is said while, like, after Harry tells Voldemort this big theory he has that the Elder Wand actually belongs to Harry. I think he does say something like now to find out if this theory is like true. Like he's not like 100% confident in the theory, but maybe after, because he talks to Ollivander about wand allegiances, and then he's just come back from talking to Dumbledore about the Deathly Hallows. So maybe after those two conversations, and maybe he also becomes illuminated by almost going to heaven. And he just, I don't know, I guess he just has an epiphany. But yeah, no, it is a bit strange. I feel like it's more for building tension that we don't know that before.
Also, wouldn't that stop, like, even if Harry is now the master of the Elder Wand, Voldemort then kills Harry, technically, by doing Avada Kedavra on him between that happening. So, like, wouldn't that kind of count as being, like, defeating him? Yeah. If he'd done Expelliarmus first, would it counted? Because Harry still has his wand on him.
I don't think it counts as defeating him, because Harry specifically does not, like, he either puts his wand like in his pocket or somewhere where he like can't reach it, and specifically does not arm himself. So it's not Voldemort defeating Harry, it's Harry giving himself up.
But surrendering kind of would count as being defeated.
But he's not. But it's not for the right reasons.
For the right reasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's he wants
To die.
To die. It's not like he's like, you're more powerful than me, so I'm giving myself up. It's really Harry is undermining Voldemort in that moment.
I suppose. I still think that is maybe kind of a plot hole that we've unearthed.
No. Well, what's the plot hole? Like
that Harry's
Voldemort,
logic doesn't really make that much sense.
I think for me, the only sort of plot hole would be what you said about like, how does Harry really figure that out?
Okay.
But he could.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he does show some intelligence.
Signs of intelligence.
Yeah. Occasionally there's thoughts firing in his brain.
Yeah. Okay, so we sort of solved that one a little bit.
Yeah, another one solved. Another tick in another feather in our cap.
So now on to the next plot hole.
Mm-hmm. So Sarah, what the plot hole I want you to solve? I mean, I suppose there's an explanation for this, but it doesn't really make sense. Is that so? Obviously, it's well established that the Weasleys are poor.
Yeah,
they are impoverished wizards, despite it really being unclear how anyone could be poor when you have access to magic.
It's probably because they have too many kids.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, there's people who get by, muggles that get by with having a lot of kids. I mean, having 7 children about 100 years ago would be, the norm. And they don't have the luxury of, getting household objects animated to do the cooking and cleaning.
Well, exactly. I think that it is easier to be poor and be a wizard because you won't go hungry, because if you have 1 sandwich, you can turn that into 7 sandwiches.
According to Gamp's law.
Yeah, which we'll go through later. But I think the point is that Mr. Weasley he kind of lacks ambition, but / is like really happy with where he is in the ministry. Like he loves his job, even though his job doesn't pay very much. And, Molly is a stay-at-home mom, so she's not bringing in...
Despite being apparently a very good wizard.
Yeah. And you would think... Yeah, I would think once her children left the house, it's weird then that... I guess then there's a war or something.
Yeah. So what the plot hole is that in Philosopher's Stone, Ron is giving a hand-me-down wand from Charlie... And it's well established in Harry Potter that the wand chooses the wizard. And there's times throughout the series where characters are not using wands that are, linked to them, in that the wand hasn't chosen them and it has adverse effects. So Ron, in his first year of school, is massively disadvantaged and made to be a worse wizard than he is, and given a really bad starting berth because he's given this wand that doesn't work properly because it's not bound to him. So the plot hole here is, why does that happen? Because here's a couple of ideas, right? Either Molly and Arthur are stupid, they don't like Ron and want him to fail, or they just don't understand how wands work, despite both being wizards and having 7 kids, because they prioritize buying Percy an owl instead of getting Ron a wand, which, I mean, having an owl's nice and everything, but I think they already have an owl, don't they? So they don't even really need that. Yeah,
well, they have a family owl, and Ron already has a rat. Percy doesn't have anything, and I think you could just accio an owl. Yeah. Well, they want to reward Percy for becoming a prefect. I feel like it's clear throughout that maybe Ron is not the favorite child, which isn't great on Molly and Arthur's behalf.
I mean, that's borderline child abuse.
Yes. Giving him a hand-me-down wand?
Well, it's stupid. I mean, they're setting him up to fail in his education. But they can't afford
a new wand. I think if it was between rewarding Percy and giving Ron a new wand, I think that Charlie... Here's my explanation. Because normally, if you get a wand as a wizard, you keep your wand because it is loyal to you or whatever. But I think they couldn't afford to buy Charlie a very good wand. I suppose. I don't know. Maybe his was secondhand as well or something. Maybe there's a secondhand wand shop. And Charlie now, at this point, has a good job, training or wrangling dragons in Romania. So my theory is that his work was able to give him a new wand, a better wand that chose him, etc., to Charlie. Or in Charlie's sort of travels around Romania, he found a wand that looked cool and was like foreign compared to what he was used to, and like he thought that was a good souvenir or something. So then he was able to get a wand, and then having a spare wand, his parents were like, well, this is one way we can save money. And so they gave it to Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they had Ron disarm them. And so then it belonged to him.
That would have worked, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's how the Weasleys could get rich quick in the wizarding world, right? So at the Burrow, they have like a pumpkin patch, right? So what they need to do is they do a multiply spell on the pumpkins, then sell 1 million pumpkins at Halloween. They then sell them all to Muggles. The Muggles buy all the pumpkins. They get, how much is a pumpkin worth? About a couple quid or something. So then they're now millionaires in the Muggle world. They then buy something that has tangible value in the wizarding world with the Muggle currency, like gold. And then they sell the gold in the wizarding world for wizarding currency. And now they're rich. And no one loses out because the Muggles are like, they're not robbing anyone. They're just selling people pumpkins at a price. They could even sell it at a lower price than the Muggles would be paying. I suppose the only people who lose out there are pumpkin farmers who are not wizards.
That they could do that, but I believe there are likely regulations about, I don't think wizards are allowed to do business deals with Muggles. I think that's a ministry law, and that's basically one of the things that Arthur is enforcing, because people will sell magical things to Muggles that end up harming them. And that's part of his whole job, is like making sure that wizards aren't doing business deals with Muggles.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he would be doing that as a side gig.
But he's not selling a pumpkin that has been multiplied.
It's not harmful, but he would be breaking.
Yeah.
I believe he would be breaking the law.
Well, I guess that makes sense with his character as to why they wouldn't do that. Yeah. I'm sure there's other schemes you could come up with to become rich in the wizarding world.
Yeah.
Come up with a potion that generates generational wealth.
Just invent something.
Yeah. Well, Molly invents that clock that tells her where all her kids are.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Sell that. And then make another one.
I think it's a basic charm that like most people could just do.
But isn't Dumbledore impressed with it?
Yeah.
Probably most people couldn't do it.
Maybe she doesn't have the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, that's true. She's not a hustler. Not a natural born hustler.
All right, so your plot hole basically has turned into, why are the Weasleys poor?
I think arguably that is a plot hole. I guess in Spider-Man lore, Spider-Man is always struggling with his income, but that's because his job is being Spider-Man and that he doesn't get paid for it. But like, if you have superpowers, I find it sort of difficult to think that you couldn't monetize that in some way. And having a wand basically is having superpowers. Okay, what's the next plot hole, Sarah?
The next plot hole, okay, this has to do with the trace. So for you Muggles out there, the trace is this is the way that the Ministry is able to prevent underage witches and wizards from performing magic before they're of age. So before they are 17, wizards aren't allowed to do any magic outside of being at Hogwarts. But we find out that the way this is enforced is through the trace. So the Ministry can trace where underage magic has been performed. But we find out that it's not just underage magic that they trace, and they can't actually tell who performed the spells. So, for example, in the Chamber of Secrets, Dobby comes to visit Harry at his aunt and uncle's, and Dobby performs a Wingardium Leviosa spell on a pudding that then drops on someone's head, and then Dobby disapparates, gets out of there, and Harry is basically accused of having used magic outside of school, which he's not allowed to do, because the trace has informed the Ministry that magic was performed at Privet Drive, but even though it was done by Dobby, they couldn't tell. So this brings up a lot of questions. Number one, it just kind of sucks for Muggle-born children, because for children born into wizarding families like Ron, his family will be doing magic all the time. Like, his parents are doing magic all the time. But the Ministry, essentially because they know that there are wizards living there, they don't register when magic is done there. They don't care. They just count on the wizarding families to basically enforce the rules and prevent their kids from doing magic outside of school. So really, they can only catch Muggle-born kids doing this.
Yeah, they want to, root out the kind of lower class in the wizarding community and give them punishment for no real reason.
Yeah, so that's not the plot hole. That just kind of sucks. But the plot hole is that other people come to Privet Drive and perform magic, and Harry is not accused of doing magic when he's underage. So, for example, in Goblet of Fire, Mr. Weasley comes to Privet Drive via Floo Powder, and he does a bunch of spells once things go awry. And
this doesn't happen in the movie, by the way.
No, this doesn't happen in the movie. So Mr. Weasley performs magic there. In Order the Phoenix, Tonks does Alohomora and does magic at Privet Drive. And in Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore comes to Privet Drive and does magic and has wine glasses hit the Dursleys on the head and basically just like
assaults them.
Yeah, no, but it's funny. But Harry is never accused of doing magic outside of school in these incidents, but he is when Dobby does magic.
And one additional one is in Prisoner of Azkaban movie, where Harry does Lumos at the start of the movie for like a cool transition thing, and would completely break the rules of the trace, but nothing happens.
Well, if we go into movie plot holes, we will be here until next year.
Until the cows come home.
Yeah. So that is the sort of plot hole. Ewan, do you have an explanation of why the trace would not be set off when these other people did the magic?
Well, while you were explaining it to me, I was thinking that the trace could work in a couple of ways. So the trace is applied to the houses of wizarding children that aren't like wizarding households, right? So that's why it goes off at Privet Drive. And then it's also put on the wands of magic users, because they detect it when Harry does Expecto Patronum outside of his house, right, in Order of the Phoenix. So there must be like a dual aspect to it, because I think that's the first time you hear it. Oh no, you hear about it in the Chamber of Secrets, but then the first time Harry does it and gets in trouble is in Order of the Phoenix when he does Expecto Patronum.
Yeah, well,
then he has the trial.
I don't think it's on the wands, because Dobby doesn't use a wand. House elves don't need wands to do magic. And I think it's like on the area. I don't know how, that's very general, but they know that there's no wizards like in
Well, I was saying it could be on the house and on the wand, but it could be the neighborhood at large, I suppose. It just seems that was more an effective way of doing it. But then if it was on the wand, it doesn't make sense why it would also be on the house. Also, if doing magic outside of Hogwarts is such a bad thing, couldn't they just take their wands away when they leave Hogwarts? Why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, maybe an invasion of privacy.
Right.
Or, because they can use their wands in an emergency. So they keep their wands, I guess, for protection.
Yeah, but in Life or Death scenarios, can't wizards just do crazy magic anyway without a wand? Harry does it all the time.
I think that's
pre-coming of age or something. Yeah,
before they've really learned how to do magic, and it's when their emotions just control the magic.
Mm-hmm.
I think very few wizards can do magic without wands. They are magic and they're channeling their magic through the wand, but I think you basically need a wand to do magic. For example, there's one instance where Harry says Lumos and he's not holding his wand because he's trying to find it, and his wand still lights up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my explanation now of the plot hole is that every incident I think you described was a Ministry official, apart from Dumbledore, who does the magic. So what I'm going to say is that it's corruption of the ruling class, in that it's one rule for the rest of the wizarding population, but for the Ministry officials, they can get around it. So they just say, I'm going to this place, the trace is on it, but when I do some magic, don't make the trace set off because I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's necessarily corruption, because they can do magic because they're not underage.
Yeah.
So I think they just are like, I'm going to go do some magic at this place. And I think the trace maybe still is set off, but then the ministry like knows.
Yeah, that it wasn't
yeah.
the wizard doing it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's more just that in the story, the way it's described is like inconsistent, but I think that one, you could kind of come up with an explanation as to why it doesn't work.
Yeah. Although in the Order of the Phoenix, when Tonks does magic, the ministry is already like pissed off at Harry. Like they're trying to expel him, and that would add to their sort of already questionable evidence.
Yeah.
Trying to expel him.
Really, where the trace becomes like super like convoluted, I think, is that they establish it in Deathly Hallows for when people say Voldemort's name.
That's different. That's taboo.
Oh, okay. That seems like really powerful magic. That's like basically like Skynet, where like they can like you say a word somewhere, and then the bloody Minority Report police can like teleport to you and be like, did you just do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Voldemort's a pretty powerful wizard, so.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's his greatest feat, setting that little taboo thing up.
So I guess, and with Dumbledore in the sixth one, I mean, Dumbledore's in constant communication with the ministry, and he kind of mostly does what he wants.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he apparates out of Hogwarts.
No, he doesn't. Only in the movies. So I feel like we somewhat maybe solved that one.
Mm-hmm. Just to cover that, it's a well-established thing in the Harry Potter books that you cannot apparate and disapparate in and out of Hogwarts. For those who can't remember, apparate is basically teleporting. But in the movie, Dumbledore apparates from the top of Hogwarts with Harry in Half-Blood Prince. Mm-hmm. And in the book, he doesn't do that. He goes on a little jaunt with him out to Hogsmeade before teleporting or apparating.
Yeah, and in the movie, Dumbledore just says like, being me, I have my privileges, or something stupid like that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is like an okay explanation, but it does seem... Well, I mean, like, I feel like...
Why would the apparating thing just not apply to him?
I feel like he's powerful enough to, like, get around it if he wanted to.
But then Voldemort could probably...
But Dumbledore has more time to be at Hogwarts to, like, to study it and change the rules and stuff.
I think it's an ancient thing put in place.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good change, but I feel like you can explain that.
Okay.
Next plot hole. How does werewolf transformations work, Sarah? How does it happen?
Well, now, to be honest, I can't remember exactly how it happens in Prisoner of Azkaban, the book. And I don't have the book here, so I can't look it up. But very clearly in the movie, Lupin transforms only when the full moon comes out from behind a cloud, which would imply that it is the moonlight itself that causes him to change, rather than there just being the presence of the full moon, which might be how it happens in the book. I think it is how it happens, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe when they come out, it's only like sunset when they come out of the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah, maybe. I think this, like, so the problem here is that it's fine for the actual plot of Prisoner of Azkaban, but just generally speaking, they go to great lengths telling you about how Snape has been brewing Lupin a potion to help him control his werewolf transformations.
Wolfsbane.
Yeah. The Wolfsbane potion, which he still transforms into a werewolf, but it makes the transformation much more, I think, less painful, and he's more docile when it happens. And he does that to like protect one himself and two like people around him, so he doesn't go around on a werewolf rampage and bites a bunch of students and whatever. I mean, it still seems like a bit of a nightmare waiting to happen, and maybe something that Dumbledore should have vetoed hiring Lupin in the first place due to his werewolf curse. But what really they should have done, based on this idea, is that they should have just hired a carpenter to build a sort of spacious room in Hogwarts that doesn't have any windows. Yeah. And then every time there's going to be a full moon, Lupin just goes in there, establishes a nice little man cave, probably takes in sort of like a couple bottles of whiskey, and then just sits in there and, you know, drinks the night away. And he won't transform because he won't see any moonlight.
Or sleeps.
No, he seems like more of a party guy, I think.
Yeah. Here's my explanation.
Okay.
Lupin, he's got to have his vitamin D. He can't be in a windowless room because then his sleep cycle will be messed up because he won't have the natural sunlight to wake him up.
Yeah.
And he's a stickler for his sleep cycle.
Yeah, it would upset his circadian rhythms probably. Yeah. So Yeah.
Although I'm sure being a werewolf and being awake rampaging all night probably also wouldn't help.
Yeah, actually, Sarah,
His circadian
how would this help?
rhythms.
How this explanation doesn't work because he doesn't sleep when he's a werewolf either,
But maybe it's like being asleep.
and he doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, but maybe it's for his mental health. He can't be in a windowless room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably a bigger damage to his mental health being in the windowless room than transforming unwillingly into a giant wolf creature.
Well, because then he's just kind of like a dog, and dogs just curl up and are cozy and sleep.
He doesn't curl up at all. He's this massive, languid-looking, sleeked beast. So
in the movie.
Yeah.
But when he has his wolfsbane potion, then it's kind of like tea, just relaxes him. And
he
then
curls
just
up into a little
chills
donut
out. Yeah.
and howls gently.
Uh-huh.
Dumbledore comes around and strokes him, gives him pats.
Or maybe no one has figured out that it is literally the moonlight.
Maybe that's when him and Sirius get it on.
Yeah.
In animal form.
Oh, dog it. Yeah, they're almost the same species.
Yeah.
Oh my. Well, there's my explanation. Take it or leave it.
So is your explanation that it's to avoid upsetting his sleep cycle / mental health?
Yeah.
Okay, well, mental health's important, everyone. So, I mean, is Lupin's mental health more important than the physical health of all the children at Hogwarts? Probably. Okay, now that we've answered many of those, we are going to have a look at some of the questions put in by you lovely listeners. So, listener Jenny had a few plot holes to let us know. Here is the first one. Not exactly a plot hole, but it's always seemed dumb that the whole series, being a parcel mouth, is this magical phenomenon where you don't even know you're speaking it, and to everyone else it just sounds like hissing. But suddenly, in Harry Potter 7, you can just learn parcel tongue by listening to a parcel mouth hiss? How did Ron even know which words Harry was saying would be the ones to open the chamber? Or did he memorize and study everything Harry has ever said in his sleep? This is a good point and a good plot hole. Yeah, we just watched Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is where this plot hole comes from in the movies, I suppose. And there, Ron manages to open the Chamber of Secrets by speaking parcel tongue, and then his explanation is that Harry talks in his sleep, which, when we were watching it, I was like, that is so stupid. And what Sarah has told me, is that is actually an even better explanation than what is provided in the book.
Well, yeah, that is what I thought, because so what happens in the book is Ron is basically like, I remembered what Harry said how many years ago? 5 years ago when they entered the Chamber of Secrets before, which I was like, well, how did he remember that after so many years? But now I'm trying to solve it. Okay, I'm trying to explain it. So back then, first of all, it was kind of a traumatic incident, so it's possible his brain was remembering more or remembering less, depending on how he reacted to it. But Harry only says one word. He just says open. And assuming parcel tongue is like an actual language, which I think it is meant to be, then Ron only had to replicate that one word, open. And more recently, Harry has just said that same one word in parcel tongue, open, when he opens the locket that Ron then destroys. So Ron also somewhat recently heard him say open in parcel tongue again. So after a few tries, Ron guesses it correctly, remembers it, and they get into the chamber that way. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit convenient, but ultimately, I guess it's as likely as me remembering a word I heard or like a phrase someone said in, I don't know, Arabic 5 years ago, and me being able to say it perfectly to open a magic door 5 years later. Which, I mean, that sounds unlikely to me, but it's not impossible. So
yeah. Another possible thing is, I mean, I think you do just need to say that word open. But in the Chamber of Secrets, they also talk about how like only Slytherin's heir can open the chamber. And if it at all sort of recognizes people that way, it recognized Harry for literally being the heir of Slytherin. And at the time, Ron still have a Horcrux on them, I believe. And so then it might recognize sort
Evil.
of Voldemort, who is the heir.
Wait a minute.
In that way.
Is Harry the heir of Slytherin?
Yeah.
How?
Because he's very, very distantly related.
Oh, okay. But like almost everyone probably is, because the wizards aren't. There's not that many of them. So Ron could ultimately also be, if Ron's a pure blood family. So like he also probably is related to. I mean, he would have to be if they're pure blood.
Maybe he's not actually related, because Voldemort. He and Voldemort are somehow related.
Well, I think Voldemort is, right, because it's from the Gaunts.
Yes.
But then Harry has a piece of Voldemort inside him, so maybe that helps.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think that's it.
But then the Potters are also pureblood, so maybe it is.
Well, I just looked through the
family tree.
Yeah.
100 generations. That's good research.
It's kind of like one side. They have the guy I mentioned before. The magical experimenter guy.
Yeah.
And then they're also related to the Peverils, who are the original three brothers. And I believe the Gaunts are also related, aren't they? To the Peverils? No, they're not. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know.
Well, they probably are. if they're purebloods,
they have the ring, but they have the ring, which was passed down throughout the Gaunts do, which is passed down. So they must also be related to the Peverils, but the Gaunts are also related to Slytherin. So I think that's Voldemort's side of the family related to Slytherin, but maybe Harry's isn't. They're just related to the Peverils.
Yeah. Well, my theory is that they're all related because they have to be. If they're all... There's only so many wizards, so they have to all be related at some point if they're purebloods.
Too much inbreeding. All right, so that was a good question, Jenny. Let's do another one of Jenny's questions. So she says, I would be a little bit wary of immediately hiring someone as a professor who went off and lived in the forest for years and claimed to have changed his personality entirely. Doesn't seem entirely stable. We couldn't even do a basic body scan. Modern Muggle airports would be able to see Voldemort's face under that turban. How did Dumbledore not have any sort of vetting process for new professors? And if it started to seem like that position might be cursed, I feel like I might not want to leave children unattended with the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Perhaps at least have a TA to supervise or something.
I mean, obviously Dumbledore's a crackpot, so like, why is he hiring these I mean, maybe arguably like Dumbledore like suspects something's wrong with Quirrell and he's...
Keep an eye on him. Well, I'm not entirely sure of the timeline, because I'm not sure if Quirrell was already a professor and then he went off sort of on sabbatical to Albania and then came back with Voldemort on his head.
Yeah.
Or if Dumbledore hired him when Voldemort was already on him.
What's Quirrell's first name?
It's
Quirius or something?
It's like
Quirius. I'm not sure if you should be wearing that turban. I'm not sure if that's like allowed. I don't know if airports necessarily had that technology back in the time of Philosopher's Stone. And also I'm not sure if Quirrell would have ever gone through an airport if he's a wizard. Because he can just apparate.
She's not saying he would have gone through an airport. Right. She's saying Muggles are able to do this. Why can't Dumbledore?
Yeah, but I mean, arguably, a lot of Muggle technology just doesn't seem to exist in the real or in the wizarding world.
Yeah.
Because there's the classic question: could you kill Voldemort by shooting him with a gun?
All right. Well, technology doesn't work at Hogwarts. That is established throughout, but I think Jenny is saying, shouldn't there be a spell that is just like Revelio?
Or do a Veritaserum? Are you a dark wizard?
Do you have a dark wizard on the back of your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the main explanation of this is just kind of Dumbledore does not really care about the safety of his students. I mean, everything about Hogwarts is supposed to be the safest place in the world. But students are dying there all the time. There's always some sort of thing threatening their lives. Quidditch is very dangerous. I feel like students could die in Quidditch, like, pretty easily. They're just flying them up thousands of feet in the air.
What do you think Dumbledore's, like, doing with his spare time?
Yeah,
or I say spare time, like, during the school year. Like, what does he do?
He doesn't... Yeah. What any, like, head teacher would do.
Yeah, because, I mean, I suppose later in the series, he's, like, looking for the Horcruxes. But I mean, he finds one, and then that almost kills him. Yeah. In fact, it does kill him. Like he's like terminally ill from after that.
Right.
And Harry manages to basically get rid of all the rest of them within a year, and he's not even that good at magic, and he's under extreme duress because Voldemort's chasing him the whole time. So that's pretty poor from Dumbledore. But like the rest of the time, he's just like hanging out, just doing stuff.
Yeah,
He's checked
admin.
out. He's mentally checked out.
Well, that's his one job is hiring teachers, and he does that very badly.
Yeah.
I think once it goes on, becomes clearer that he has very limited options, basically no options after Quirrell, because everyone thinks that the job is cursed. So that's why he ends up with Lockhart, and which it is, yes. But that also brings us to another plot hole that we didn't write down, but we talked about, which I don't know if it's a plot hole, but like, do the teachers have lives? Like, they're at Hogwarts for the entire school year, so how could they possibly have spouses? They are just not allowed to have lives outside of Hogwarts. Well, they sleep in the castle.
Yeah, but like where? Is there like a teacher's like quarters? Do they have bunk beds?
I'm sure in the giant castle, I think they probably all have their own
rooms in their offices. It's like a law firm in the city.
Yeah, maybe.
Pull out beds from under the desks.
But there's no way they could like maintain a family, you know? So you have to, it's basically like becoming a monk. You have to like...
Do you think any of them have had like affairs with each other?
Yeah.
Or not affairs, because maybe they're not married, but you know, like relationships. Who do you think's most likely? Dumbledore and... Well, Dumbledore's gay, so... I was going to say Dumbledore and McGonagall.
Yeah, well, I think Dumbledore
Professor
after Grindelwald.
Binns and Flitwick.
Maybe. I don't know. It's also strange that all the teachers seem to be so much like older. So then maybe I would say like they've already had families and such. But I feel like in the past, they've hired teachers quite young. I think McGonagall has been working there a very long time.
Yeah, well, there's a big inconsistency as to how old McGonagall is, established by the Fantastic Beasts movies.
So that's my question is...
Where's Hogwarts' HR department? Yeah. Why is Dumbledore in charge of hiring and firing when he's clearly incompetent? I think the school board, which is established in the Chamber of Secrets, probably have kind of a good point. As good as a wizard as Dumbledore is. I mean, Harry's whole defense of him is that he's like this great dude and he's a great wizard. And he's like undoubtedly a great wizard. But, I mean, bit of a moral complexity to him.
Absolutely.
And actually, in terms of his acumen to being a principal teacher, not very good. No, he's a good magician and a bad leader. Yeah. Also, why does he not want to be Minister of Magic? Because he thinks he'll go mad with power?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because after his incident with Grindelwald, I think that showed him that he can't trust, or he thinks he can't trust himself with power.
But he's okay with being head of school.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not...
Well, there's a lot of responsibility there. His actions almost result in the chosen one being killed like 6 times in 6 years.
That's true. Yeah. And his one goal is to protect Harry.
Yeah.
So that he can then be killed
and why
at
is
the
he
right
always
time.
gallivanting off around the place?
Dumbledore?
Yeah, like in book 1, he's not at Hogwarts during the climax.
Yeah, well, it's established that he doesn't want to be Minister of Magic, but the Ministry is always, they trust him a lot, and like Fudge and the Ministry are constantly coming to him
for help.
In
book 2, he has to flee Hogwarts because of the scary school board coming for him. But couldn't he just like hide out at Hogwarts? I mean, there's loads of secret passages and stuff, and like keep an eye on Harry.
Yeah. Maybe he's like, finally, a vacation.
I mean, does he have no idea about the basilisk?
What do you mean?
Dumbledore.
But what he knows, he's trying to stop the basilisk. So what do you mean?
Well, I feel like he could have done a better job.
How?
Well, he clearly knows that Hagrid didn't do it. Or surely he should know that. If he thinks Hagrid did do it, then why does he have him as his gameskeeper?
No, he doesn't think Hagrid does it. And he tells the minister that, but he has no power over the minister to stop him.
Well, maybe he should have become minister just to reinstate Hagrid as a wizard. Maybe that would have been the noble thing to do.
Well, Harry did that all on his own. I feel like Dumbledore's constantly like, oh, it's okay. Harry's got it. Okay, He'll solve all the problems.
Let's say that Dumbledore in himself is kind of a plot hole because he's simultaneously meant to be like the best wizard in the world and also messing stuff up at every turn.
Yeah, it's true.
And the solution to that is that people are not perfect, apart from Sarah.
Oh, so sweet. All right, our next question comes from Sheila, a very important contributor to the podcast.
An important person.
Yes, she contributed me. All right, so her question is, what happened to the house cup? Which, this is valid because... Well, so in the films, the house cup, I think maybe is only in the first one. And in the books, they say who won the house cup in 1, 2, and 3, which Gryffindor wins every year. But then once we get to year 4, they keep kind of mentioning like, oh, 5 points to Gryffindor, blah, blah, but they don't mention the House Cup.
I thought maybe
winner.
they got rid of the House Cup in favour of the Triwizard Cup in number 4. Oh no, they get rid of Quidditch. But maybe not also the House Cup.
Well, maybe they get rid of it because of the Triwizard Tournament. But I think that they might still like give out points throughout. Mm-hmm. So I think that the explanation for that one is that when Cedric dies, like no one cares about the House Cup anymore. That's more important. And the colors of the Great Hall and stuff are like to honor Cedric, not
the winners.
Yeah, not
whoever won that year is probably like, God, I worked so hard. I got so many points.
And then, so I'm going to go through and try to explain each year why they didn't say the winners. So the next year is Order of the Phoenix. In this one is when Umbridge comes to the school. She has this inquisitorial squad, and they're just like...
take points away from everyone.
Yeah. They're all in Slytherin. Mm-hmm. So they're like, 1,000 points from Gryffindor. 10,000 points to Slytherin. Oh. So...
Slytherin probably win.
Yeah, either Slytherin win or once...
the cup is moot.
Yeah, once like Dumbledore comes back and Umbridge gets... sent to the forest to a very bad fate, then maybe they're like, all right, well, this is clearly corrupt. We're not doing it. Or Slytherin win. And then in Half-Blood Prince, at the end of that one, Dumbledore dies, which again, they have like the funeral and everything. So that probably takes precedent. And then there's no Dumbledore to just give the victory to Gryffindor.
Yeah, true. So as a reminder, in the first one, Slytherin are going to win. And then Dumbledore just is like, nah. Gryffindor win. Yeah. Way.
Okay, and so then it's Deathly Hallows, and there's the Battle of Hogwarts, and there's just
Hogwarts is under authoritarian rule.
Yeah.
All the good students are having to hide out in a little secret room.
So that's my attempt at an explanation of where the House Cup goes after.
Yeah. I mean, maybe after book 3 they were just like, this whole system is stupid. Yeah. Because like the point system, they repeatedly make out like McGonagall is like giving Gryffindor some points sometimes, but she's just as quick to take them away as she is to give them out. Whereas Snape will just give Slytherin points for anything, and you'll take him away for anything from all the other houses.
Yeah,
so
maybe that's why Dumbledore felt the need to step in.
It would only really work if there was clear rules as to like how one gets points and how many points can be taken away for like bad behavior, you know?
Yeah. I think it's counting on the teachers to be fair, which they are not.
I suppose of all the failings of the teachers, that's probably one of the least important ones.
Yeah, true. So there you have it. We also had a plot hole sent in from George, who is
a member of the a cappella group Low-Key Vocals, Sarah's a cappella group, shout out.
And George's plot hole was magic isn't real. And you got us there, George. That is an unsolvable plot hole.
Well, yeah, maybe the whole thing is just a dream from under the stairs in Privet Drive.
Well, there you have it. We have solved many plot holes, and we actually had so many plot holes that we are splitting this into 2 episodes. So, yeah, get excited. This is only part 1. And come back next week for even more unsolvable plot holes that shall be solved.
Remember, everyone, to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your podcasting platform of choice. I think we're on everything, and if we're not, let us know, and we'll try and get it on there. Remember to rate us the maximum on the podcasting service, which on Spotify is 5 stars. I'm not actually sure what it is on Apple Podcasts, but if you don't want to rate us 5 stars, just don't bother rating us at all, because we don't want to lose our perfect rating, because the podcast is perfect. And as always, if you have any ideas for podcasts or anything, let us know. You can probably get in contact with us at the Popcorn and Cumin Instagram page. Also, make sure to follow that Instagram page, because that is where we generally engage with the audience. So that's where this episode was voted for by the fans. We first had a vote for what topic people wanted to do, so it was between Harry Potter, I think Star Wars, and some other stuff, and then we narrowed it down as to what Harry Potter topic we wanted to do. So that's how this plot holes thing came up. So yeah, if you have ideas for franchises or something you want us to talk about, or like a movie or anything, we'll be willing to consider that. Or if you have a specific idea, a grand old idea for something to do with, like the episode we've just done, solving Harry Potter plot holes, you can let us know that and we'll give you some credit, or maybe we won't and we'll steal your idea.
Alright.
That's probably everything though.
Yeah, that's all, folks.
Oh, actually share the podcast as well and get other people to listen.
Yeah.
But now that actually is all.
That's all, folks.
Bye.